What peace looks like Russia and Ukraine in the future. Introduction. Understanding the causes and effects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, which began in 2014, is one of the most significant geopolitical crises of the 21st century. Rooted in a complex web of historical, political, and cultural factors, this conflict has reshaped the regional dynamics in Eastern Europe and has had profound global implications. This introduction aims to provide a comprehensive overview of the causes and effects of the conflict, setting the stage for a deeper exploration of potential future scenarios for peace and reconciliation. Historical context. The roots of the Russia-Ukraine conflict can be traced back to the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, which left a legacy of unresolved issues between newly independent states. Ukraine, with its strategic location and rich cultural heritage, found itself at the crossroads of Russian and Western interests. The historical ties between Russia and Ukraine are deep, with shared cultural, linguistic, and religious heritage. However, the relationship has been fraught with tension, particularly regarding Ukraine's sovereignty and its aspirations for closer ties with Western Europe. The 2004 Orange Revolution in Ukraine, which protested against electoral fraud and sought closer integration with the European Union, marked a significant turning point. This movement was seen by Russia as a threat to its influence in the region. The tension escalated further with Ukraine's pro-European stance, particularly after the 2013-2014 Euromaidan protests, which led to the ousting of the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych. Immediate causes. The immediate catalyst for the conflict was Russia's annexation of Crimea in March 2014, following a controversial referendum not recognized by Ukraine or the international community. This move was justified by Russia as a response to protect ethnic Russians in Crimea and counteract NATO's perceived encroachment. However, it was widely condemned as a violation of international law and Ukraine's territorial integrity. Simultaneously, pro-Russian separatist movements gained momentum in eastern Ukraine, particularly in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. These movements, supported by Russian military and economic aid, declared independence, leading to a full-scale conflict between Ukrainian forces and separatist fighters. The situation was further complicated by Russia's hybrid warfare tactics, including the use of unmarked troops, cyber attacks, and propaganda campaigns. Political and economic impact. The conflict has had profound political and economic effects on both Ukraine and Russia, as well as on the international community. For Ukraine, the war has been a catalyst for significant political changes. It has strengthened national identity and unity, particularly in the face of external aggression. However, it has also exposed weaknesses in the country's political and military institutions. The ongoing conflict has strained Ukraine's economy, which was already fragile, leading to significant financial challenges and a reliance on international aid. For Russia, the annexation of Crimea and involvement in eastern Ukraine has led to international sanctions, isolating it economically and diplomatically. These sanctions, combined with falling oil prices, have impacted the Russian economy, leading to a recession and increased domestic challenges for the government. Humanitarian and social consequences. The humanitarian impact of the conflict has been severe. The war has resulted in thousands of deaths, with estimates suggesting over 13,000 casualties by the end of 2019, and millions of people displaced from their homes. The situation in the Donbass region remains dire, with ongoing fighting and a significant humanitarian crisis. The conflict has also exacerbated divisions within Ukrainian society, particularly between the western regions, which are more pro-European, and the eastern regions, which have historical and cultural ties to Russia. The conflict has also had a broader social impact, fueling nationalism and anti-Western sentiment in Russia while strengthening pro-European and anti-Russian sentiments in Ukraine. These shifts have implications for the future of both countries and their relationships with the wider world. International dimension. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is not just a regional issue, it has significant international implications. The crisis has tested the resolve and unity of Western institutions like NATO and the European Union, highlighting the geopolitical fault lines in the region. The conflict has also strained Russia's relations with the West, leading to a new era of Cold War-like tensions, characterized by sanctions, military posturing, and competing narratives. Conclusion. As the conflict continues to evolve, the prospects for a peaceful resolution remain uncertain. The challenges are numerous, including the complex historical grievances, the competing national identities, and the geopolitical interests at play. However, the desire for peace and stability remains strong among the populations of both countries and the international community. This book aims to explore the various dimensions of the conflict and the potential pathways to peace. By examining the past and present and imagining future scenarios, it seeks to provide a comprehensive understanding of what peace might look like for Russia and Ukraine. Through a blend of journalistic narrative, speculative fiction, academic analysis, and personal stories, the book offers a rich, multifaceted exploration of this critical issue. Chapter 1. The day peace was declared. Journalistic narrative. On a crisp autumn morning, the world awoke to headlines proclaiming a monumental event. Russia and Ukraine had signed a historic peace agreement. The treaty, finalized in Geneva, was the culmination of months of arduous negotiations, brokered by an international coalition of diplomats. The agreement outlined a comprehensive plan for the cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal of military forces, and the establishment of demilitarized zones. It also detailed economic cooperation measures and humanitarian aid provisions to rebuild the war-torn regions. In Kyiv, the mood was a mix of cautious optimism and palpable relief. Crowds gathered at Maidan Nezalezhnosti, waving Ukrainian flags and singing the national anthem. In Moscow, the response was more subdued but no less significant. Citizens, weary from years of sanctions and economic hardship, watched the news with a sense of hopeful anticipation. Both nations, once locked in a bitter struggle, now stood at the precipice of a new chapter, their futures intertwined in the pursuit of peace. Speculative fiction imagined the bustling streets of Kyiv and Moscow on that fateful day in 2027. The skies, clear and blue, seemed to mirror the newfound clarity in the hearts of the people. In Kyiv, children skipped along the pavements, their laughter a stark contrast to the years of conflict they had known. Digital billboards displayed messages of unity, interspersed with images of smiling leaders shaking hands. In Moscow, a sense of cautious hope permeated the air. The famous Red Square, usually a place of solemn historical reverence, was now filled with citizens eager to discuss the implications of peace. Street vendors sold commemorative badges, and the city's metro stations played soft melodies of reconciliation. Academic analysis. The peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine marks a significant turning point in the post-Soviet geopolitical landscape. Historically, the region has been a hotspot of tension due to deep-seated historical grievances and territorial disputes. The 2027 treaty draws parallels with the Camp David Accords and the Good Friday Agreement, both of which required significant compromises and the involvement of international mediators. The agreement includes provisions for joint economic zones, much like the post-World War II reconstruction efforts in Europe. By fostering economic interdependence, the treaty aims to reduce the likelihood of future conflicts. Moreover, the inclusion of minority rights and cultural preservation clauses reflects lessons learned from the Balkan peace processes. Personal stories. For Natalia, a teacher in Lviv, the news of peace brought tears of joy. Her brother, a soldier, had been stationed on the front lines for years. When I heard the announcement, I immediately called him, she recalled. We cried together, knowing that he would soon be coming home. In a small village outside Moscow, Ivan, a factory worker, felt a surge of hope. His son, drafted into the military, had been his constant worry. The war took so much from us, Ivan said, his voice breaking. This peace is a chance for my family to heal, to start anew. Roundtable discussion. Moderator. Today, we have experts from various fields to discuss the implications of the peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Dr. Petrov, can you share your thoughts on the economic aspects? Dr. Petrov. Certainly, the establishment of joint economic zones is a crucial step. It not only facilitates trade but also encourages investment in infrastructure, which is vital for both nations' recovery. Moderator. Ms. Shevchenko, what are the social impacts we can expect? Ms. Shevchenko. Rebuilding trust is paramount. Initiatives like cultural exchanges and joint educational programs can play a significant role in mending the social fabric torn by years of conflict. Comparative historical analysis. The peace process between Russia and Ukraine can be compared to the reunification of Germany. Just as East and West Germany faced the enormous task of integrating divergent political and economic systems, Russia and Ukraine must now navigate their way towards a harmonious coexistence. Similarly, the Good Friday Agreement provides a blueprint for managing ethnic and nationalistic tensions through political power sharing and cross-border institutions. Scenario Planning Scenario 1. Full implementation. If the peace agreement is fully implemented, both countries could experience a significant economic boost from renewed trade and foreign investments. Social programs aimed at reconciliation could foster a new generation of citizens who view each other as partners rather than adversaries. Scenario 2. Partial implementation. In a scenario where only some aspects of the treaty are enacted, lingering mistrust and sporadic conflicts might persist. Economic recovery would be slower, and political tensions could flare up, risking a return to hostilities. Scenario 3. Breakdown of agreement. Should the peace process falter, both nations could face severe consequences. Renewed conflict would devastate already struggling regions, leading to further international isolation and economic decline. Reflective passages. What does peace truly mean for nations that have known only conflict? Is it merely the absence of war, or does it encompass a broader, more profound transformation? Peace requires not just political agreements but a deep, personal reconciliation. It asks individuals to forgive, to understand, and to rebuild trust in the face of immense suffering. Epistolary elements. Letter from a soldier to his family. Dear Mama, today, we heard the news. Peace. It's hard to believe after everything we've seen. I can't wait to come home, to see you and Papa. There's so much I want to tell you, but most of all, I want to just sit in our kitchen, smell your cooking, and feel normal again. With love, Andriy. Social media post. At peace now. Today, we take the first steps towards a future where our children can live without fear. #hope #reconciliation. Chapter 2. The negotiation table. Journalistic narrative. In a secluded wing of the Palais des Nations in Geneva, the final rounds of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine reached their critical phase. Overseeing the negotiations were key figures: President Alexander Shevchenko of Ukraine, President Dmitry Ivanov of Russia, and a coalition of international mediators led by UN Secretary-General Maria Fernandez. These discussions, marked by intense debate and painstaking compromise, culminated in a historic agreement that promised to end years of conflict. Key aspects of the treaty included the establishment of demilitarized zones along the contentious borders, the creation of a bi-national Economic Development Council, and the initiation of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address war crimes and human rights abuses. The accord also mandated the withdrawal of foreign troops and the implementation of joint security patrols in previously disputed areas. Speculative fiction. Picture the scene. A grand hall adorned with the flags of numerous nations, bathed in the golden glow of chandeliers. As the clock struck midnight, signaling the end of another grueling session, the negotiators remained at the table. President Shevchenko, his eyes weary yet determined, reviewed the latest draft of the agreement. Across from him, President Ivanov, known for his steely resolve, nodded in approval. The air was thick with anticipation as both leaders prepared to endorse a document that would reshape their country's futures. In this imagined future, technology played a significant role in facilitating the talks. Holographic projections displayed detailed maps of the proposed demilitarized zones, while real-time data analytics provided insights into the potential economic impacts of the treaty. The final moments were broadcast live to both nations, allowing citizens to witness history in the making. Academic analysis. The final rounds of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine draw heavily on lessons from previous peace processes, such as the Dayton Accords and the Oslo Accords. Historical precedents underscore the importance of third-party mediation, impartial verification mechanisms, and comprehensive frameworks addressing political, economic, and social dimensions. The involvement of the United Nations and the European Union was crucial. Their roles as neutral mediators helped bridge gaps and build trust between the parties. The treaty's emphasis on economic cooperation echoes the Marshall Plan's principles, aiming to create interdependencies that reduce the likelihood of future conflicts. Personal stories. Among those who played pivotal yet less visible roles in the negotiations was Olga, a Ukrainian diplomat with a background in conflict resolution. "Every time we hit a wall, I thought of my family back home," she said. Their future depended on our success. On the Russian side, Sergei, a seasoned negotiator, found himself reflecting on his own experiences as a young soldier. I knew the cost of war firsthand. It drove me to push for every possible concession that would ensure lasting peace, he shared. Imagined interview. Interviewer. President Shevchenko, can you describe the atmosphere in the final hours of negotiation? President Shevchenko. It was tense, no doubt. But there was also a shared determination. We all knew the stakes were incredibly high. Interviewer. President Ivanov, what were the main challenges you faced during these talks? President Ivanov. Balancing national interests with the demands for peace was incredibly difficult. However, the presence of international mediators helped us find common ground. Comparative historical analysis comparing the Russia-Ukraine peace talks with the Camp David Accords highlights similarities in the role of mediators and the necessity of addressing underlying social and political issues. Like the Middle East peace process, the Russia-Ukraine negotiations required significant compromises and a willingness to confront painful historical truths. The Dayton Accords, which ended the Bosnian War, provide another pertinent comparison. Both processes necessitated detailed frameworks for political autonomy and the protection of minority rights, reflecting the complexity of modern ethnic and national conflicts. Scenario planning. Scenario 1. Successful implementation. With the treaty fully implemented, Russia and Ukraine could see a period of unprecedented economic growth and social stability. Joint infrastructure projects and increased trade would foster interdependence, reducing the risk of future conflicts. Scenario 2. Partial implementation. If only some elements of the treaty are enacted, tensions might simmer beneath the surface. Sporadic clashes could occur in disputed regions, and economic benefits would be unevenly distributed, leading to potential unrest. Scenario 3. Breakdown of agreement. Failure to uphold the agreement could lead to a resurgence of hostilities. The international community would likely impose further sanctions, deepening economic woes and causing widespread humanitarian crises. Reflective passages. What drives nations to seek peace after years of conflict? Is it the exhaustion of resources, the desire for economic stability, or the simple yearning for normalcy? The negotiation table becomes a crucible where these motivations are tested and forged into agreements. It is here that leaders must transcend personal and national pride, envisioning a future where their people can coexist peacefully. Epistolary elements. Diary entry of a diplomat. November 15, 2027. Tonight, we signed the agreement. I still can't believe it. Years of work, countless hours, and now it's done. The hall was silent as the leaders signed the document, each stroke of the pen echoing through the room. We have given our nations a chance. I hope history will judge us kindly. Social media post. At Peacebuilder, witnessed history today. The path to peace is long and arduous, but tonight, we took a giant step forward. #Peace Hope Future. Chapter 3. Borders redrawn. Journalistic narrative. In a landmark decision, the peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine redefined the territorial boundaries that had been a source of intense conflict for years. The new borders, meticulously negotiated and ratified in the treaty, aimed to reflect both historical claims and current realities. The eastern regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, previously contested and war-torn, were designated as autonomous zones under Ukrainian sovereignty but with significant local governance. Crimea, a focal point of the dispute, was set to be governed as a special administrative region under an international mandate for a transitional period of 10 years, after which a referendum would determine its permanent status. Speculative fiction. In the year 2030, travelers along the newly established borders between Russia and Ukraine witnessed the transformation firsthand. Checkpoints, once sites of tension and violence, had become symbols of cooperation. Border guards from both nations now work side by side, ensuring the smooth passage of people and goods. The autonomous zones of Luhansk and Donetsk, with their unique blend of Ukrainian and Russian influences, were flourishing under the new governance structure. Local councils, elected by the residents, had the power to legislate on matters of culture, language, and education, fostering a sense of local identity while remaining part of Ukraine. In Crimea, the international mandate had brought in peacekeeping forces from neutral countries, ensuring stability and preparing the ground for the future referendum. Academic analysis. The redrawing of borders in the Russia-Ukraine peace agreement reflects a nuanced approach to conflict resolution. Historical precedents such as the Saarland's administration after World War II and the establishment of autonomous regions in Spain provide valuable insights into the potential success of this model. The autonomous status of Luhansk and Donetsk draws parallels with Catalonia in Spain, where regional autonomy has been crucial in maintaining national unity while respecting local identities. Crimea's transitional international mandate is reminiscent of the post-war administration of Trieste, which balanced competing territorial claims through an international governance structure. Personal stories: Yulia, a schoolteacher from Donetsk, felt a mix of relief and apprehension about the new autonomous status. "It's a chance for us to rebuild and preserve our unique culture," she said. "But it also means we need to find a balance between our Russian heritage and Ukrainian sovereignty." Meanwhile, Alexei, a fisherman from Crimea, saw the international mandate as a hopeful sign. "For years, we've been caught in the middle of political games. This agreement gives us a voice in deciding our future," he remarked. Dialogue and interview format. Imagined interview. Interviewer: President Shevchenko, can you explain the rationale behind granting autonomous status to Luhansk and Donetsk? President Shevchenko: the goal was to recognize the distinct cultural and historical identity of these regions while ensuring Ukraine's territorial integrity. Autonomy allows for self-governance in local matters, fostering peace and cooperation. Interviewer: President Ivanov, what are your thoughts on the international mandate for Crimea? President Ivanov: it's a pragmatic solution. The international mandate ensures neutrality and stability, giving the people of Crimea the opportunity to decide their future through a fair and transparent process. Comparative historical analysis. The redrawing of borders in the Russia-Ukraine peace agreement can be compared to the creation of autonomous regions in post-Franco Spain and the international administration of the Saarland after World War II. Both cases illustrate how granting local governance can mitigate conflict and foster integration. The international mandate in Crimea is akin to the administration of Trieste, where international oversight helped stabilize a contested region. These historical examples provide a framework for understanding the potential success and challenges of the new territorial arrangements. Scenario planning. Scenario 1. Successful implementation. The autonomous regions of Luhansk and Donetsk thrive under local governance, with increased economic investment and cultural revival. Crimea, after the transitional period, peacefully holds a referendum that is accepted by all parties, solidifying its status. Scenario 2. Partial success. While the autonomous zones maintain relative peace, economic and political challenges persist. Crimea's referendum is delayed due to lingering disputes, but the international mandate continues to ensure stability. Scenario 3. Breakdown of agreement. If local governance in the autonomous zones fails to address underlying tensions, separatist movements could resurge. Crimea's status might remain unresolved, leading to renewed international and regional conflicts. Reflective passages. What does it mean for a nation to redraw its borders? Is it an admission of past mistakes, a pragmatic step towards peace, or a compromise that sacrifices some ideals for greater stability? Redrawing borders is not merely a political act, it reshapes identities, loyalties, and futures. It demands a deep understanding of history and a courageous vision for the future. Epistolary elements. Letter from a resident of Luhansk. Dear friends, today, we embark on a new journey as an autonomous region. It's a strange feeling, a mix of hope and uncertainty. But I believe this is our chance to build a future that honors our past while embracing the possibilities ahead. Let us work together to make this dream a reality. Sincerely, Oleg. Social media post, at Peace Journey, witnessing history at the new border. Cooperation and hope in every step forward. #New Beginnings. #Unity. Chapter 4. Crimea's status. Journalistic narrative. In a groundbreaking resolution, the status of Crimea was addressed as a pivotal component of the Russia-Ukraine peace agreement. Under the terms negotiated in Geneva, Crimea was placed under a special international mandate for a transitional period of 10 years. This period was designed to stabilize the region, ensure the protection of human rights, and prepare the groundwork for a referendum that would ultimately determine Crimea's future status. The mandate involved the deployment of international peacekeeping forces and the establishment of an administrative council comprised of representatives from Russia, Ukraine, the European Union, and the United Nations. This council was tasked with overseeing the region's governance, ensuring the impartial administration of public services, and facilitating dialogue among the diverse ethnic communities in Crimea. Speculative fiction. In the year 2032, the streets of Simferopol, Crimea's capital, buzzed with an air of cautious optimism. Under the international mandate, the region had seen significant improvements in infrastructure and public services. Schools offered bilingual education in Ukrainian and Russian, while new healthcare facilities catered to the needs of all residents. The approaching referendum loomed large in the minds of Crimeans. Digital billboards across the city displayed messages from both sides, urging citizens to participate in shaping their future. In the coastal town of Yalta, an elderly man named Victor sat with his grandson, explaining the significance of the upcoming vote. "This is our chance to decide, to have a voice," he said, his eyes reflecting the weight of history. Academic analysis. The resolution of Crimea's status through an international mandate draws on several historical precedents. The administration of the Saarland by the League of Nations in the 1920s and 1930s, and the United Nations oversight of East Timor in the early 2000s, provide relevant examples. These cases illustrate the potential for international governance to stabilize contested regions, protect human rights, and facilitate self-determination. The Crimean Mandate was designed to address the complex demographic and political landscape of the peninsula. By involving multiple international stakeholders, the mandate aimed to ensure neutrality and build trust among the local population. The inclusion of a referendum as the final step was intended to give Crimeans a direct role in determining their future, thereby enhancing the legitimacy of the process. Personal stories. For Maria, a teacher in Sevastopol, the international mandate brought a sense of hope and stability. "My children can now learn about both Ukrainian and Russian cultures without fear," she said. "We have access to better healthcare and education, things we could only dream of before." Meanwhile, Ivan, a fisherman in Kerch, viewed the changes with cautious optimism. "Life has improved, but the referendum will be the true test," he remarked. "We need to make sure our voices are heard and that our future is decided by us, not outsiders." Dialogue and interview format. Imagined roundtable discussion. Moderator: "Today, we discuss the international mandate in Crimea." Dr. Novak: "How has the mandate impacted the region's development?" Dr. Novak: "The mandate has significantly improved public services and infrastructure. More importantly, it has created a platform for dialogue among Crimeans, fostering a sense of shared purpose." Moderator: "Ms. Petrova, what challenges remain as we approach the referendum?" Ms. Petrova: "The biggest challenge is ensuring that the referendum is free and fair. There are also lingering tensions that need careful management to prevent conflict." Comparative historical analysis. The international mandate in Crimea can be compared to the administration of the Saarland in East Timor. Both regions were stabilized through international oversight, which facilitated economic development and protected human rights. The referendums held in these regions provided a democratic mechanism for resolving their status, although the outcomes varied based on local contexts and international support. Similarly, the administration of Kosovo by the United Nations after the conflict in the late 1990s offers lessons in balancing local governance with international oversight. These historical examples underscore the importance of comprehensive planning, international cooperation, and robust mechanisms for conflict resolution in managing contested territories. Scenario planning. Scenario 1. Successful referendum. If the referendum is conducted smoothly and its results are widely accepted, Crimea could either reintegrate into Ukraine with significant autonomy or gain internationally recognized independence. This outcome would likely lead to regional stability and economic growth. Scenario 2. Disputed referendum. A contested referendum could exacerbate tensions, leading to renewed conflict and international intervention. The region might face prolonged instability, with significant humanitarian consequences. Scenario 3. Delayed referendum. If the referendum is postponed due to political or security concerns, the international mandate would need to be extended. While this could maintain stability, it might also lead to frustration among the local population and complicate future negotiations. Reflective passages. What does it mean for a region to have its fate decided by a referendum? Is it the ultimate expression of democracy, or does it risk oversimplifying complex identities and histories? The story of Crimea under international mandate is a testament to the delicate balance between self-determination and the need for stability and justice. Epistolary Elements letter from a Crimean resident. Dear Andriy, living under the international mandate has been a strange but hopeful experience. We've seen real improvements in our daily lives, and for the first time in years, I feel a sense of possibility. As we approach the referendum, I can't help but feel anxious about what the future holds. But I am also excited to finally have a say in our destiny. Yours, Anastasia. Social media post, at Future Crimea, community meeting to discuss the upcoming referendum. Voices of hope, voices of the future. Hashtag Crimea decides. Hashtag democracy in action.